Hi, everybody. You're listening to Radio Cherry Bombe, and I'm your host, Kerry Diamond, coming to you from New York City. This episode is part of a special miniseries we're doing in partnership with Fisher Paykel called The New Home. I'll be chatting with some amazing women about their lives, their kitchens, and their inspiring careers. Today, my guest is Mélanie Masarin. Many of you know Mélanie as the founder of Ghia, the popular non-alcoholic beverage brand, I love Ghia, that she built after a career at places like Sweetgreen and Glossier. But she's also a brilliant host, as reflected in her new book, Riviera, Recipes from the Coast of France and Italy. It was just released yesterday, and it is a beautiful book filled with recipes that are perfect for gatherings for many, girl dinners for one, or something in between. We talk about the book, the influence of her grandmother and her magical recipe book, and Mélanie's kitchen in Paris, which she recently renovated. I saw pictures in Architectural Digest and have been dying to ask her all about it. Stay tuned for our conversation. Today's episode is brought to you by Fisher Paykel. Let's talk about your kitchen personality. Maybe you're all about slow roasts and playlists, big baking projects on a weekend, never following a recipe or following them to the last 1/8 teaspoon of salt. You know who you are. However you show up in the kitchen, Fisher Paykel is designed to meet you there. Founded in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and shaped by a deep respect for nature, Fisher Paykel is a product design company that has spent more than 90 years rethinking the role of the kitchen. In fact, they've been talking about the social kitchen for decades. This idea that the kitchen isn't just where meals happen, it's where life happens. Fisher Paykel's appliances, from their ovens and cooktops to refrigerators and wine fridges, dishwashers and washing machines, are all built to support that. Not as one-off pieces, but as a system that works together, so your kitchen reflects how you live, cook, and gather. Fisher Paykel for all your kitchen personalities. Learn more and find your perfect appliances and lots of kitchen inspo at fisherpaykel.com. A huge thank you to everyone who joined us at Jubilee last weekend in Manhattan. I'm still processing the day, as you can imagine. We opened with a number from the Broadway musical, Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across Manhattan, and then one amazing speaker and panel after another hit the stage. I loved seeing so many of you. I cannot believe all the cherry outfits you found. And of course, I'm still thinking about all the great food and drink. And I was blown away by the wisdom on the stage and the camaraderie and joy all day long. Special thanks to Resi, American Express, San Pellegrino, Ghirardelli, Square, California Prunes, and Veuve Clicquot for making Jubilee possible. But also to Team Cherry Bombe, SV Productions, and especially all our amazing volunteers. We recorded everything, so stay tuned for some future episodes featuring the talks and panels from Jubilee NYC 2026. But in the meantime, you can follow along on Instagram for all the highlights. If you'd like to know about upcoming events, be sure to subscribe to the Cherry Bombe Substack. You can get a paid subscription or access all the free content, newsletters, and recipes. Download the Substack app or take a look on desktop, which is my favorite way to experience Substack. It's at cherrybombe.substack.com. The link is in our show notes. Now, let's check in with today's guest. Mélanie Masarin, welcome back to Radio Cherry Bombe.
Thank you. Second time.
It's so nice to have you back.
I know.
You know I am a super fan. Love what you've built with Ghia. For all you Ghia fans listening, we will talk about Ghia at the end of the show. We can't not talk about Ghia. But you have a brand new cookbook out, which is so gorgeous. I expected absolutely nothing less from you. No pressure.
The pressure.
And we're going to talk about some of the recipes in here because this really is how I love to cook and eat. First thing I want to talk to you about, though, is your gorgeous Paris kitchen.
Yes.
I saw it in Architectural Digest and flagged it. And every time I see you, I forget to ask you about it. And when I saw your mirrored backsplashes, I was like, oh my God, I want mirrored backsplashes. Because my apartment's tiny, but it gets a lot of light. And I feel like our two apartments have that in common.
Well, when I got my apartment, it was not getting a lot of light. So the mirrored backsplash was a little bit of that. I renovated it. And it's like, for context here, my apartment is 600 square feet. It's really tiny.
Mine's not much bigger, yes.
Yeah, I poured like my heart into renovating it. It was very stressful, like financially, but I'm so happy that I did it. And so, you know, I'll always have this apartment. It's like the thing that I don't own my place in New York, obviously. And it's like the thing that I have to show for. It's like a 10-minute walk from my sister in Paris. And renovating is so much cheaper there. But the apartment had like a flexed second bedroom because there was a baby's room. And then it was like, I moved every wall to sort of open up this area. And so now there's a window that's sort of directly reflecting into the mirror, the backsplash mirror of the kitchen. And it makes for a really bright kitchen. And when I was looking for a place to buy in Paris, which it was a 3-year process, getting like a mortgage and while living in the US, even though I'm French, and everybody was making like all cash offers and I was always losing to, especially for kind of like lower priced apartments. And so I had a list of criteria that I really wanted, and my apartment in Paris has none of the items of that list. It's not like a compromise. It's that it's not Haussmann style. It does not have an elevator.
Right. I read it's a 4th floor walk up.
It's a French 4th floor walk up. So it's an American 5th floor walk up.
Oh, right.
Didn't have the Parisian floors, so I put them in. Because everybody sells you like new parquet, but I found someone that basically restores old planks. You can buy the wood for super cheap, but then the labor is more expensive. It evened out. It was just a bit of a delay in construction. And so anyways, I had all these details and I really thought the mirrored backsplash would be such a difference. And it was a bit of a question mark because it can get dirty but honestly, it's worked out. I don't mind, cleaning it up. It's not really a big deal and it's super nice.
That was my first thought, that you must spend a fortune in Windex or whatever the French equivalent of Windex is.
It's not so bad. So I basically moved the stove forward a little bit because I have this sort of built-in stove into the counter, and the counter is melamine because sometimes I rent out the apartment and I like things to be beautiful but not fussy and never fragile. And so the backsplash feels well designed, but it's far enough from the stove that it's not a nuisance.
Got it. And you searched high and low for that stove.
Oh my God, that was really something. I still have that stove, like a picture of an inspiration of that stove on my desktop. I have so many images I just save down when I love them. And so I really feel like I manifested that stove because it's just been on my desktop for maybe 8 years. And I loved it. And of course, when I went to redo my kitchen, the stove had been discontinued for a long time. And for months, I looked for it. And I way overpaid for that stove. I paid $2,000. It was probably a $400 stove. But I ended up finding someone that had just sold one on eBay in the UK. And I emailed him. I remember it was Christmas Day because it was the only time that I had time to do that. And my mom was like, get off your computer. But I was working on the renovation. And the guy said, I have another one in my garage. I don't know why this guy had a bunch of stoves in his garage. And he sent it to Paris. And I wasn't in Paris because I was in LA at the time. And I had to send my little brother to pick it up, clear customs for it outside of it. There's 2 DHL points in Paris. He was so mad at me for so long. It was huge. And he had to bring it up to 5 floors. And he was like, this is your only favor for the year. But honestly, it was worth it.
Only favor for the year. I thought he was going to say this is your only favor for a lifetime.
I know it could be, but
That's funny. So the stove thing, was it all about aesthetics or is it a special stove? So it's not a magical stove.
It's not a magical stove. Okay, I hate, what do they call induction stoves? I like to cook with a flame. How do you explain? It's like a linear stove, so it's 4 side by side. What's not allowed in France is those that are just built into the counter. They're floating, which sometimes we see in New York. But anyways, it's very beautiful and it's just long and thin. So it's, as a result, pretty far from the backsplash. And I love my kitchen in Paris. So I will say I got none of the things that I wanted, but I walked into the apartment and it had an open kitchen, which is really rare for Parisian apartments. And that's why, I decided to make an offer on this apartment.
Well, we'll have to put a link to the Architectural Digest story because it's so pretty. And by the magic of Architectural Digest photography, it does look semi-spacious and comfy and light-filled.
It feels like we pushed the walls out, but what I did really is that I made a really tiny bedroom with an ensuite bathroom so that everything could be optimized. It doesn't feel too small when I'm there at all.
And lots of pale wood.
Yes.
I love pale. My apartment's mostly white. My floor is painted white. The walls are white. And I just find it very relaxing. So I think that's also what drew me to yours, the mirrors and the pale wood.
Yeah, and it's very quiet. And I love wood and white in general. I think that it's just classic and you can always accessorize around it. But for my Paris place, it feels very zen.
And you've one of those lovely Noguchi lamps.
The tall one, yeah.
Hanging, yeah. Was it a hanging one?
Yeah, it's hanging and it's basically, so my bedroom truly is small. So I've decided to forego nightstands and I also love asymmetry. So on one side, I just have a little ceiling light and on the other side, I have this kind of falling Noguchi light. I really wanted the big one, but the ceiling height in the bedroom, there's beams, so it's not that tall. So I got the half one and it still looks really pretty.
Have you been to the Noguchi Museum?
Yes.
Here in New York
I fell
City?
in love at the Noguchi Museum.
Wait, with your boyfriend?
Yeah.
Wait, tell us that story. How romantic.
I wrote a Substack about that, actually. But it was maybe like a month into dating, and we woke up. It was a beautiful day in April last year, and my boyfriend loves to motorcycle, and we went up to Glacier in, Greenpoint, and had a really lovely little brunch. And then we went to the Noguchi Museum. I was showing him a little model that Noguchi had made, and I explaining to him that I had used it as a reference for a design project that I had done like way early in my career, and I really loved this thing, and I was so happy to see it in real life. And then I went to look at another piece, and I saw that he went back to look at it, and he turned around and he smiled at me, and I swear I felt quizzy, and I think that it's the moment that I fell in love with him.
I love that. I can't wait to read your Substack. I mean, I'm a big romantic, so I love that.
Me too.
What's your sign?
I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, you're an Aquarius. I love Aquarians.
We're weird.
I'm a Pisces.
Oh, love. I'm a cusp, actually.
Yeah, so we're right next to each other. We'll be right back with today's guest. Did you know that Cherry Bombe has a cookbook? We do. It has the best cover ever, in my opinion, and it's filled with recipes from more than 100 women in the food world, plus amazing photography and food styling. I love the book so much and still cook from it all the time. I've made Avery Ruzika's walnut chocolate chip cookies more times than I can remember. My pro tip regarding the cookies, follow the recipe exactly. Don't deviate. I love Electra Wiedemann's pink spaghetti, which uses beets to stain the spaghetti a bright pink all the way through. It's as magical as it is delicious. There's also Padma Lakshmi's sweet and sour shrimp and the most flavorful chicken from Jessica Koslow of Squirrel. And those are just a few of the highlights. Pick up a copy of the Cherry Bombe cookbook at your favorite local bookstore. Kitchens are obviously important to you and your family because one of the, I don't know if centerpiece is the right word, but sort of a centerpiece, maybe a guiding light of your cookbook, Riviera, is your grandmother's kitchen notebook. Yes. Tell us about that.
So my grandmother started a little kitchen notebook when she was 18 years old, and it's full of cutouts and collages and her handwriting, which gets, sloppier as the years go by. My grandmother passed very unexpectedly in her early 70s, so I was lucky enough to have known her for 20-something years of my life because both her and my mom had kids quite young, and she really is the one who taught me how to cook. And, my mom had me at 26. She would ship me to the south of France for the summer, and my grandma and I would just cook 3 meals a day like it was our job, and I would be her little assistant in the kitchen, and I would always see her write in this notebook. My grandmother came from very humble means, but everyone who came into her kitchen was a king or a queen because she made everybody feel so special. Her cooking was so generous, and I think that's something that's very south of France in a way. And people talk about the Riviera like it's a very glitzy thing, touristy, but in December is like a retirement community. It's a little bit like Florida. And so my grandmother and I would go to the market and we would cook together, and I would see her write in her notebook. And when she passed, my mom and her 3 brothers decided that they would each write on a piece of paper one thing that they wanted from her, and that thing would be given to them. And it would be a way to not fight between siblings, and they could pick one thing that, like, without question they could have. And my mom said, well, we should include Mélanie because she's an adult. And all 5 of us wrote the kitchen notebook, which is so strange because, we can link to pictures. This thing is falling apart. But she wrote in it until the day that she died, and it was such a memorabilia of her, and it has, it's such an heirloom. And my uncles and my mom decided that since I had been probably the one that had been cooking the most with her recently, and I was the youngest, they all don't have children, it should go to me. I also at the time had just gotten my first job in New York, and I wasn't able to go back for the funeral, and so they felt like it would be something to gift me. And it's just been my most prized possession since. Like when the fires were going on in LA, the first thing I did is I called my assistant. I was like, you gotta break into the bedroom and get the kitchen notebook. And he did. It's just the one thing that is my most precious thing.
Oh, I have goosebumps. Yeah. I feel like we need to put it in a safety deposit box somewhere. But obviously this is a real living thing for you. You reference this. It inspired a lot in the cookbook.
So much. It's so much of it is food philosophy, and then the recipes, honestly, I don't really ever get measurements from there. First of all, my grandmother didn't cook with measurements, and I didn't either until this book, or maybe until COVID when I started baking more or learning new things. But so much of it was a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And my editor at HarperCollins was like, what do you mean a splash of? How big is the splash? How many milliliters is the splash? Because I just, learned to cook for consistency and texture and things like that. And so that was very interesting. But I reference a lot of her way of cooking, inspiration. She has drinks in there. She has desserts. She has recipes she collected from her friends. So if she'd go to a dinner party, let's say I come to your house for dinner and you make an amazing cake, she'd be like, please write the cake. And she would say, Kerry's cake. So there's a name of everybody. It's just very special. Like she always gives credit for recipes.
Tell us about this cover.
I asked a friend whom I know is an amazing designer. I gave her the images and I said, what do you think the cover should look like? I want it to be very south of France, but I want it to feel a little bit like a coffee table book, but also something that people wouldn't be scared to use. And I want it to be like the sunshine. And she did this. It was the first cover design. The publisher obviously designed the book, but I just wanted to kind of try something like fresh eye from someone who knew me really well. And she cut out this image of a fish, which is in the book. And the dish actually is a dish that belongs to my mom. And it says Provence Cannes at the top. And my parents antique a lot. They had booths at Les Puces for years, the antique market, the flea market in France. And she bought it there, and it's from where we're from. So it's very special for many reasons.
Oh, that's
Even
fabulous.
though I think that the publisher was like, the raw fish really works here. But I don't think that it was like where they were headed at the beginning, you know?
It's fantastic.
It's unusual.
I love the contrasting textures because the Riviera, the title, and the photo are glossy, but then the rest of the book is matte white, the rest of the cover.
And the Riviera is like slightly embossed too, which is super nice. And the format is a large format. So first-time authors usually get a smaller book because book sales are way better if the book is under $30, which I think the MSRP for mine is $40. But I mean, it's like a lot of retailers discounted. So like I think right now it's $29 on Amazon. So it still works, but usually the large format is just not really allowed. So I had to really push for it and had a bit of an accelerated timeline because of it. And then also the white cover because they get really dirty in the bookstores. But basically I was like, I want to do this. And they were like, you did all the things that we're not supposed to do.
You know what you need to sell with this? Because when the Cherry Bombe covers were all white and just had a photo kind of floating in the middle, I had all these white erasers. And sometimes I would go to bookstores and I would see the magazine and I would just be like, oh my God, it's filthy. But I didn't want to ever wrap them in plastic. That just felt so wasteful. But yeah, I know the pain of matte white covers.
It's so worth it.
It's so worth it.
Also,
so
like
beautiful.
my grandmother's cookbook is so dirty that I would be so happy if people use it a lot and then it has oil stains on it. It doesn't matter.
Tell us how you made this book your own. You know, there's the pantry section that a lot of folks have. But what makes this distinctly Mélanie?
So initially I thought, here's the structure of like a regular book. But my intent isn't really to teach people to cook. Like I don't have that pretension. It's more to break the intimidation out of cooking and to say like you can have all of these delicious things without much effort. So the idea for the book was really to kind of share that intuition and to get people to share, I guess, like how much I love cooking and how much it's changed my life. And for me, it's really such a meditation and I love it. So I just try to kind of think of the little things that make a moment special. And you're looking at the radish with butter recipe right now, but that's one that's like so classically French. And it takes 2 minutes and anyone can do it. And if you have friends that are coming over and you have really nice olives and radishes with butter and a Ghia spritz, that's already like a really cute evening, you know? So I think the idea is to there are some recipes that are more advanced in there. There are fish recipes that, you know, I couldn't use that word in the book, but really my goal was to create things that were unfuckable.
So many good things in here. Where should people start with this book? What's a recipe you'd love for them to try?
You know, I've been plugging the fish in papillote a lot, just because...
That's so weird. I opened right up to that page.
I know.
There we go.
Just because it is so easy. You can use any fish. You just put all of the aromatic. You fold it in the sheet of parchment paper. And like 1,000% of the time that I do it, it's like my last minute meal when friends are coming over. I always have some fish in my freezer and I'll just put it in there with some herbs, tomatoes, lemons, anything you have.
You
really
put it
good
right in frozen?
No, I'll thaw it.
Okay.
It'll be like, okay, someone's coming. And then, you know, you thaw it and you put it in. And it just like traps all of the moisture and all of the delicious smell and herbs. And I mean, it's very much a recipe for people who don't cook a lot, right? We're also all busy. I don't make myself meals for one that often. You know what I mean? It's like, so I think that this recipe is like a perfect unfuckable recipe that truly will give you like restaurant quality, you know, deliciousness.
It's such a sense of ceremony too.
Yeah,
when you make
totally.
it, because it's sort of like ta-da.
You put it on the plate with the paper, and people open it, and all the steam comes out, and it's so appetizing, and the juices are like, you know, oily but clear, and I don't know, I love that recipe.
And you can kind of customize it however you want. If
100%.
you don't have anything in your apartment, you can still just cook it by itself with a little olive oil.
Exactly.
If you have lemon, cherry tomatoes, herbs.
Cherry tomatoes are so good because they really turn into these bubbles of goodness, and then they'll just explode in your mouth. But also if you have any kind of back of your fridge wilting greens or anything like that.
The gnocchi with the confit cherry tomatoes.
Yes.
We will talk about the photography. The photography in the book is beautiful. But the food styling was so clever. You arranged it in sort of a grid, gnocchi, tomato, gnocchi, tomato.
Yeah, so we shot the book in France, honestly, partially because that's kind of where it was inspired by, and also because it was cheaper to do it there. And so we shot in the South. But I worked with my friend Olivier, who's an incredible art director. And then he works with this woman, Julia, she's kind of like, she does food styling for fun. And everybody was down to just go to the South of France for 5 days and do this. And we, styled a lot of things like as we were going through them. And the cherry tomatoes we had because we'd shot them on the first day. And, for the gnocchi, there's a lot of the recipes that are like how to make the pasta, and then you can sort of adapt them because there's a pesto recipe and there's like really nice pomodoro and limone, which you're looking at now. But we decided with the gnocchi, they're very playful, and gnocchi was my sister's favorite dish growing up. She would love to play with her food and make the plate a certain way, and so that's kind of what inspired it. Is like throughout this book, there's a lot of family, memories of just eating together. And my sister loved gnocchi, so we kind of arranged it as if in a lattice, as if it was for her.
Oh, that's so sweet. When you said she loved to play with her food, I remember growing up like that was considered a bad thing.
I know.
Like parents would say, don't play with your food.
Well, there's this thing in France called poisson pané, which is like fried fish a little bit, and it comes in these sticks. And
right, we have fish sticks here in America.
Okay, fish sticks, but they're like very like rectangular, right? And I'm sure it's not a delicacy, but my sister was obsessed with them, and my brother and I would eat them normally with some of the breading and the fish in one bite so that they could complement each other. My sister loved to save the breading for the end, and she would arrange it like a sunshine around her plate, and then my brother and I would just look at it and try to steal it from her, and it would cause absolute chaos. But she was always like saving the best for last and doing things like that in her plate, which I don't know why I remember this, but we all eat differently.
We do. That's such a cute story. And it just makes me think, if you have kids who play with their food, maybe don't discourage them from doing that, because who knows, they could be the next great chef or food stylist.
She always just like arranged things a certain way, and now she like works for Chanel and makes these like incredible things. So,
oh, there you go. Voila.
Yeah, she's like a designer.
I noticed this tarte soleil that you had. Speaking of arranging food a certain way on a plate, I had never seen anything like this. Maybe describe how it looks and then tell folks what's in it, because it seems like a great thing to make for an event.
So easy. And actually, if you're hosting a holiday party, you can make a Christmas tree version. So this is basically you take a phyllo dough, which in France, we're super lucky that we just buy them for like €6 at the supermarket. They're like all natural, butter and delicious. Here, I think you can buy the frozen kind. And you basically lay out a sheet, just slightly thawed, just a few minutes. And then you can layer on top of it pesto, tomato, any sort of spread that you think is good. I like to do 4 different quadrants, so there's different flavors. And then you'll add another sheet of phyllo, and you'll just cut them towards the middle as if you kept the sun in the middle. And then you twist the edges into a sunshine, and it makes with just these crispy bits, which people can just take out one by one, like kind of like cheese sticks a little bit. And it's just a really nice communal aperitivo thing that takes exactly 30 seconds to make. So the idea is like this kind of nonchalant, aperitivo adventures.
Is there any difference between apero and aperitivo?
An aperitivo could be the drink or could be the occasion. In Italian, in French, apéro is just the occasion.
Is just the occasion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Apéritif is how you call the drink, but the diminutive apéro usually means the occasion. It's like come over for apéro.
Okay. I was always curious about that. Green lasagna as in Portofino. That looks fabulous. What's a green lasagna?
Okay, so basically, my dad's Italian, my mom is French, but my grandmother, who's my maternal grandmother, lived in the south of France and was obsessed with Italy and spoke really great Italian. So I think there was always this kind of like culture of why my dad's family always tried to kind of integrate into being more French. My grandmother just really embraced, the coast. And I always say my favorite food in the world is in Nice because that's where France and Italy meet for a kiss. So we always had lasagna. We made it often, and sometimes we'd make it from scratch and sometimes we'd just buy it because there's a lot of obviously great Italian vendors. When I started traveling and I went to Italy, and it's actually on the trip where I had the idea for Ghia, I had the incredible green lasagna from Portofino, which is made with fresh pesto. And usually, the same ports where they will make the Trofiel pesto, which is also, and so those are two recipes that I added kind of like from experience, because in COVID I made them so much that green lasagna was so transformative for me. It's one of my favorite dishes. And really, we made pistou all the time. Like, I would do it in the morning pestle with my grandma outside with basil from the garden every week. And there's the pesto soup, which is very traditional. And there's pesto and pistou, and one doesn't have pine nuts, and it's the French version. In the same spirit, a fresh pesto lasagna is so special.
The difference between the French pesto and the traditional Italian pesto is just pine nuts?
There's no nuts. Yeah.
And the French one?
Yeah. So it's like a softer, less textured version.
Got it. We had Ruthie Rogers on the show. You know her from the River Cafe in London.
Top 5 restaurants I want to visit.
Such a special place. And she has an amazing recipe that I was calling kale pesto. And she was like, it's not pesto. There are no nuts in it. And it's lacinato kale, the dinosaur kale.
Yeah.
And you just, strip it from the center and you boil it with garlic, and then you whip it up in your food processor. And it is like the sexiest winter.
It's the best thing ever. Oh. I make that on toast with eggs sometimes. You just kind of blanch it so that it remains green with like lots of garlic, lemon, olive oil, and then just in there. It's so easy.
Good. So good. So in your green lasagna, is it topped with a bechamel?
Yeah. Oh, it's layered with bechamel.
Yeah. Oh.
There's just no meat in it.
Looks so good. And then there's the soup au pistou. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
All those French
lessons. One of my favorites.
Why is it one of your favorites?
It's just an amazing dish. It's like our French version of minestrone, and I love a summer soup. The book is very summer, You can kind of stretch it before and after, but you need good tomatoes to cook from this book. The soup au pistou is just like so simple. It's like you could really adapt it, put everything in it, whatever beans you have on hand, and then just toss some pistou at the end, and just makes it so flavorful.
And tell us about the grated tomato carpaccio.
So this is so easy. I think we all sometimes have tomatoes that are a little bit too soft, and it just looks so good. You basically just take your soft tomatoes and you grate it, and then you grate some garlic and you put some good olive oil. Like, I think that in a lot of these recipes, the olive oil is an ingredient in itself. It's not just an afterthought. So having a really great olive oil, like a Brightland or an Exao, or like really a finishing oil is really important. My parents make olive oil from the south of France, and I get 1 bottle per year at Christmas, and I save it for these types of recipes where it really matters. Salt and pepper, and it just looks so special. And I love beans. Like, I'm definitely a bean girl, but I love to serve them together as almost like a pan con tomate, but French version.
Sounds so good. I saw somebody had a grated frozen tomato in a recipe, and I had never thought about doing that. But it seems so interesting. I'm going to try that this summer when
that's so interesting.
The good tomatoes finally arrive.
Yeah. I had a tomato granita recently that I thought was so good. And I was wondering, like, do they add sugar? How does it work? You kind of need the special machine. But I guess we could just use a frozen tomato.
Sure. So much you can do with tomatoes. I had a great cocktail with tomato water and some Casa Dragones tequila and guava. Oh, my God. It's so good. Another thing about this book is you are the founder of Ghia. And there's so much pressure now on people who have food brands and food and drink brands to do a cookbook. And I think you did such a beautiful job weaving your brand into this without feeling like you're being hit over the head with a branded cookbook.
Totally. I think transparently, the timing of the cookbook just made sense for Ghia because we're very much in this middle part. We're not new anymore. We want to scale. We want to get new eyeballs on the brand. We're launching in retail. And so, doing a book tour and all the things and talking about aperitivo is the right context for it. But this is not a Ghia cookbook. There are 3 Ghia recipes out of 101. I think in my life, the food came before the drink, right? I learned to cook, and from that world, from these memories from my life came Ghia. So, it's not fabricated. These are all recipes that are close to my heart, and it's recipes that pair really well with Ghia because it's just where I'm from and where, how I learned to kind of host and live.
So no one was putting pressure on you except for yourself to figure out how to integrate this.
Oh yeah, I'm the CEO of Ghia, so all the pressure comes from me. I don't have a boss, but I think that I'm really happy that I did it. It was so much more of a process than I thought. For instance, I had never measured salt before, and like the testing of the recipes and the editing, and we ping-ponged that manuscript for months, looking at every comma and I was doing that while I was running the business, which is honestly crazy, and if I had known, I probably wouldn't have done it because it was tens, hundreds of hours of work. But I'm so proud of it. Honestly, I love the book. I'm so happy to give it to my friends. And I just got like 4 copies. So they're like precious. But I've shown it to a few people and I'm like, I'm really happy with it.
You should be proud. It's so beautiful. And whether you buy cookbooks to truly cook from them or you buy them because you love the design or the writing or even the typography. I mean, I'm a font nerd. And this
I know. This one is so nice.
Such a joy for font nerds. And even your layouts, it feels very fresh, Mélanie. Congratulations. I mean, it's a really beautiful book. Did you test all the recipes?
I hired 5 people to test them from LA. Well, some were in New York, actually, but most people were in LA.
Did you feel like you had to test everything yourself also?
Well, a lot of these I had tested already, like as I was going through them, because there are recipes that I, work on all the time. But then I also wanted to have a fresh eye because when you know these recipes so well, like I'm so used to correcting, if the texture is not right, I'll add a little bit of this or that, and then I won't always make the note about it. So it was really good to get, fresh eyes on it. But I will say, again, these recipes are really simple. I don't have the pretension of being a recipe developer, someone like, a Molly Baz who's inventing things and testing. Like, that's not what this is about. These are classic French recipes that are, hopefully will take you 30 minutes or less to make, that are, just very generous in spirit, but nothing in this book is anything that I say I invented.
All right. Let's talk about Ghia. How old is Ghia now?
Okay, Ghia is going to be 6 years old in June, which is crazy. And it's like dog years, let's be real.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It's CPG is really hard. I mean, I think having any business is really hard, of course. But wow, 6 years, and I worked on it for 2 years before. So it's definitely a big chunk of my life now.
So for folks who maybe aren't super fans like me, tell everybody what Ghia is all about.
Ghia is a non-alcoholic aperitif inspired by the south of France. Now maybe I can say inspired by the Riviera. And it's all natural. It's, I think we really try to develop a flavor that is grown up, that is not infantilizing. So it has this kind of signature dryness. It's like ever slightly bitter. It's akin to the flavors of an Amaro, like a Campari, but it's really like fresh and it's all natural. So it's my favorite drink. I have it every day. I love it. What's really interesting about Ghia is that 92% of our customers identify as drinkers and they're seeking moderation. Ghia is still a very celebratory drink that doesn't just remind you that you're not drinking. So it's just kind of like a great fun drink on its own.
And it's so interesting that you had the idea for Ghia at the same time that people were drinking less.
Yeah.
But you didn't base that on marketing trends. That was your personal preference.
Well, I had the idea for Ghia as people were drinking way more. And I was not wanting to drink at that time. And I felt so isolated. And I was consulting for Sweet Green. It was after my time at Glacier. And I was just looking at people like being such label readers, asking what was in the dressing and da-da-da, and then crushing Aperol spritzes on the weekend. And I was like, this doesn't really make that much sense. So I kind of felt like that was bound to happen. And people were going to, the same scrutiny that we put into our plate was going to have to kind of move to the drink. But I also really just wanted to not feel so isolated or so shamed when I was out and about. And I'm a very social person. I just don't drink alcohol. I feel better without it, so I just wanted to make a drink that was fun and that wasn't constantly reminding you that you're not drinking. But we were very early to the trend, We launched in 2020 as people were drinking themselves into oblivion. And by the time we actually came out, I think people were reconsidering.
You're referring to the pandemic, obviously.
Yeah, where people were kind of I think, primed to reconsider their relationship with alcohol. There was also less social pressure. So we acquired a fun, nice cohort of customers in our early years that, have been with us since.
You've had such an interesting resume, back to when you came to America from France and you were a student at Brown and ran dining services, which is amazing. You worked in finance, like you mentioned, Sweet Green and Glossier, and you can definitely put the pieces together to see how you got to being an entrepreneur and launching your own brands. When you look back, is there anything you could have done differently or would have done differently? I know that's such a tough question because you just don't know what you don't know when you're starting out. And you sometimes do have to make those mistakes.
It's really hard. It's funny. Someone asked me this question last night at dinner. And I think that with the information that I had at the time, I always did my best to figure it out. But the reality is starting a beverage business, the minimum quantities are really high. It's really expensive. It's not like, people always ask me, do you wish you'd never raised money? And the reality is I had $40,000 in my bank account when I started Ghia. There was no way I could do one batch of big production for it with my savings. It just wasn't real. So that's what I had saved from like my days at Goldman Sachs, as an analyst. So with what I had, I think I would probably do it again. The same, but would I do it again? I don't know. It's really hard to say, but I'm really proud of where we are today. And I know that I speak to customers every day that love Ghia. And I think we have, what I'm good at is not creating beverage brands. I think I'm a brand person. I'm a marketer. I love to create worlds, whether they're in my kitchen with a mirrored black splash or, helping kind of be a catalyst for like a great aperitivo hour in your kitchen. So it's all together. It's not just aesthetic. It's also how you feel. Like we always thought, how does Ghia sound? Like the playlists and just the vibe to make people feel relaxed. So I just actually love to create these kind of like in-person moments. I was designing the stores at Glossier. I hope that we continue to do that as we kind of grow to be in more rooms with Ghia.
Tell us the world of Ghia today, because when you started out, it was the main Ghia product in the gorgeous bottle, and it's expanded a lot ever since.
Yeah. So we recently launched our new blood orange flavor, which is our top seller now. I think it's a bit juicier. It's a tiny bit sweeter. So Ghia has no added sugar in any other product, but obviously it's fruitier. And I think it's a flavor that people can relate to. They know what it's, will taste like when they pick it up on the shelf. So this one has been really, really fun. The spritzes, like our canned beverage, ready to drink, are about 60% of our sales now. So they've sort of taken over. And then we have our Le Fizz sparkling bottle, which I think is a very unsung hero, but we're having a lot of trouble producing it because it's extremely carbonated and it has a crown cap. So we're trying to onboard new factories for it. But that's one that I think once we figure out those manufacturing challenges, we'll probably build a little family around.
Tell us about the cans. I love all the flavors.
Yeah. I think people sometimes are surprised that they say they taste similar. And it's like, yes, the base is a Ghia spritz, but then it's kind of like as if you were making a spritz with the bottle, but you were changing the mixer. So the original one, Ghia soda, is just a Ghia with sparkling water. We have Ghia ginger, which is very warm. We have our lime and salt flavor, which used to be our number one because I think the margarita lovers like that one. It's very festive. And I think the also saltiness, brininess, it's like something that's just hard to get, especially in a non-alcoholic beverage. Like you could have a martini or you could have it in a cocktail, but for non-alc, you're kind of limited. And then we have our sumac and chili, which is a very spicy one. And people who love a spicy drinks also don't have a ton of options. People that don't like spicy will not like that one. And now we have blood orange, which, makes everybody happy. I'm an original girl.
I actually like all of them. It kind of depends on the mood and what I'm eating to go along with it. So the ones in the can are ready to drink.
Yeah.
And then the original Ghia, you mix it. Honestly, 1 part Ghia to how many parts sparkling water?
We say 1 to 3, but honestly, I mix mine 1 to 1 because I like a stronger spritz. Also, with bitterness, the more you drink it, the more you train your palate and your taste buds to enjoy bitterness. So my palate's probably completely different. My taste buds are shot at this point, but I'm a 1 to 1 and I just love bitter. But I would do 1 to 1 with, sparkling water. I love an elderflower tonic. I love a light tonic. Fever Tree has all these great mixers. And then, elderflower sometimes is really good. It's a bit sweeter. So if I have those like Beauvoir one, I'll do that. But usually I'll do...
Wait, what does that mean, a Beauvoir one?
The Beauvoir, it's that brand that does it's like English brand that does these elderflower kind of mixers that are really nice. So usually I'll do like a Ghia, a little sparkling water, and a little tonic or a little something, juicy.
Nice.
There's a really good recipe in the book for Ghia if you wanted to like bartend more. That is with fresh grapefruit juice. And if I have friends over, I'll usually make a little station like that, or I'll make a punch, which I love. And my friend Leslie from Disco Cubes actually developed the drinks recipes for me for the
Leslie.
book.
We love Leslie.
She's amazing. I did one of the spritzes for a video last week and was just reminded about how incredible that recipe is and how you can really elevate Ghia if you take the base and you really try to expand on it. It was made to be easy to make at home, but that one is just, you'll make a little syrup, so it has a bit more sweetness, and then it's fresh grapefruit juice, which I love, and a salt brim, and you just kind of smoke the grapefruit. It's so delicious.
Oh my gosh, sounds so good. I love the bitterness of Ghia. I don't like when a drink is too sweet.
No, especially a mocktail.
Yeah, or medicinal. Yeah, and I'm same with you with the added sugar. Like I really try not to have too much added sugar. It's shocking how much sugar is in things.
I mean, I'll happily have chocolate mousse. You know what I mean? It's like my favorite.
Right, but you don't want sugar in your bread. You don't want sugar in your salad dressings, things like that.
I think that I like my dessert to be sweet, but I like everything else to have like its own flavor. I know.
Yeah.
I love like a tart yogurt.
I like to get my plain yogurt and just mix my fruit right in. No sugar.
Yeah. There's actually a yogurt cake with figs that you might like, because the first recipe that you kind of learn when you're a kid in France is yogurt cake. You use the yogurt pot, basically. You put the yogurt pot and then you use it as a measuring cup. So it's really fun to do with children. That yogurt cake is usually, like a very simple, how do you call in America? Like a pound cake or something like that. My parents have this big fruit tree at their garden in the south of France with like fig tree.
Oh, you're so lucky.
I know. And they don't love figs. And I'm like, you guys are crazy, but they like figs in things. So this cake was for them because it was a bit of a memory of making cakes with my grandma. It's actually called also the quatre quarts. It's like the 4 quarters in French because it's literally just like, flour and 4 different things. I basically made a layer of the figs at the bottom and then just the kind of pound cake on top. And it's turned out so amazing.
I saw that
was
picture,
really good.
like little tarte tatin, but with figs. Yeah. Oh my God. I love a fresh fig right off the tree.
It was so good. And they like, literally there's 2 or 3 weeks where you just grab them, they fall off the tree and they like leak all over your fingers. It's like I'm like licking my fingers. So I got my mom a sorbet machine or an ice cream machine because she can make fig ice cream.
My gosh.
Trying to preserve
figs in season is just one of the life's great joys.
And there's like thousands on that tree.
I live in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn, and there are 4 fig trees on the property of a public school behind a fence. And the parents supposedly like work the garden, but the garden kind of goes wild sometimes and no one is touching it. And I will walk over and pick some of the figs that are like poking through the fence. I haven't gotten arrested yet. It's on a public sidewalk. But I have tried to befriend the few people that I've seen there because the figs are just falling to the ground. Oh and it is the saddest thing in the world. I mean,
the birds, they survived New York winters. I barely survived New York winter.
I mean, this winter, my God, it'll be interesting to see how they do when the figs finally start to, I don't know, what do they do? Appear.
I'm
sure there's a better
Land
word.
arrive.
Arrive,
grow.
Exactly, grow. It is interesting seeing how all the flowering trees in my neighborhood are doing right now after the winter.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of blooming at once, which doesn't normally happen. And some of the cherry blossoms, you could tell they're just not going to open.
Yeah.
That they got like halfway. But the lilacs are just starting to bloom. And I wait all year for that.
Yeah. My boyfriend and I went to the flower market a couple days ago. And then yesterday morning at like 6 a.m. we planted the roof. And at the market, I got fresh lilacs for the table. And they're just so incredible. It's interesting because we were looking for a few different things. We're looking for, climbing hydrangeas to cover a wall and have flowers year round. And they were like, this winter, everything late. And like, they're still really small. Come back in a week. So I have all these people from the flower market on WhatsApp.
It's interesting.
Keeping me posted on the hydrangeas.
It's super interesting how, the weather really does impact all these things.
Yeah.
And we had a crazy winter. But now we have Riviera. And the sun is shining.
Is coming.
Summer is coming. Exactly. Mother Nature cannot be held back. You know what's nice about Riviera? You read this and you don't get the impression that you need a million things to make these recipes come to life.
That was really important to me. There's like a really tight pantry. You need good olive oil. You need garlic. You need some herbs if you can have them. But like really with every recipe of the book, it's like if you don't have the right herb, put another herb. Only dill is a bit of a one that you shouldn't just like interchange because some people don't like it. But otherwise, like just whatever greens will work and be delicious. And, it's meant to be super friendly.
It was back to the tiny kitchen thing.
Yeah.
I always marvel when I walk into people's kitchens and they have a big coffee maker and they have an air fryer and this and that. And I have to put my pots and pans in my stove and I put my food processor in my utility closet.
Yeah.
And if something new is coming into my kitchen, I really need to think about it.
Totally. Honestly, I have like 3-4 pans. I don't have like that much stuff because New York.
Let's do a speed round. What beverage do you start your day with?
Usually a hot water with lemon or a bone broth, very quickly followed by coffee.
How do you take your coffee?
Black.
What is always in your fridge?
Ghia and lemons and fresh herbs and that little feta from Meredith, that Australian feta that I'm so obsessed with.
Oh, is that
so
the one
expensive.
in the glass jar?
Yeah, it's so good.
And but it's a mix of 2 cheeses, isn't it?
I think it's like sheep and goat.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I bought that once at the Tin Building, which doesn't exist anymore, so I need to find it.
So sad. I also always have my compost, and I always like my little bowl of compost. I have a mill, but I save it because we put the compost in the garden. And then I also keep all of my Parmesan rinds because they're so great for making soups. And I always have several types of really good butter.
Yum. You've got a good fridge. What was your favorite food as a kid?
My favorite food was pomodoro. And when I made pomodoro with my grandmother, she let me have a whole bowl of it. And there was just never too much of a good thing.
Tomato sauce and spaghetti?
Just the tomato sauce, actually.
Just the tomato sauce?
Like if we made pomodoro, I could have a whole bowl of it. That was my favorite food.
Do you love tomato soup also?
Love
all tomato things.
Soup.
Okay. Maybe that's your next book. Tomato.
All tomatoes.
Wait, I need to make I mentioned that cocktail with the tomato water earlier. Now I'm like, okay, I need to make a Ghia cocktail with
I haven't tried because tomato water is so subtle. I would love to
might
try.
Overpower it. Maybe that's why it worked well with the tequila.
Maybe you just use a bit less. Yeah. I've seen like tomato martinis, which sound really interesting. I do love Ghia with, I think a tomato drink with like thyme or something that's more herbal. It's something that's savory you would pair tomato with. Could be really interesting. And if you just add a splash of Ghia to make it not taste like food, that could be really good. We can try.
What's your favorite snack food?
Snack food.
It always throws the French people. You guys aren't real snackers, are you?
I don't snack as much. It's like a really American thing. But, I think of snack, I think of goûter, which was the meal that you had when you came from school. And I would have dark chocolate with baguette.
I was just talking to Lucy Fron de Ferrière, who also has a beautiful cookbook out.
Yes.
Oh, your cookbooks make a nice duo.
Definitely. She launched hers yesterday. I think we're going to make a little cooking video because we have some overlapping recipes.
Are you reading anything right now?
I'm currently reading Emma Greed's Start With Yourself book, which is more, self-book entrepreneurship book, but I find her really great. And then Laura Robin, The Big Unlock. It's a book about kind of unlocking creativity through journaling. And I met her recently and she's really awesome. So those are my two books. And I just finished Cleopatra and Frankenstein from Coco Milors and I really liked it.
Do you journal?
Not really. I did a little bit of journal speak, which is Nicole Sachs's method for kind of helping with body pain. So like if you have immune diseases or things like that, and I find the method to be really, and the theory to be really interesting, which is basically like taking a ladle out of the, nervous system. So I did a little bit of that, but I'm sort of on and off about it.
What drew you to Laura's book?
I think that we had a lot of friends in common, and then she invited me to her book launch and I heard her speak and I just thought a lot of things resonated about just kind of like how we live lives that are a bit overly connected and, all I want is to just be in the real world, my kitchen, or with my friends or by the sea. So it really resonated and she sent it to me, so I decided to read it.
Any music you're listening to?
Oh, yes. I'm so obsessed with Rosalia's album still, and I just wanted to see her in concert, so I'm back to kind of being obsessed with it. I think that favorite on rotation was the Blood Orange album. Also, Dijon. That's my 3 for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You like a playlist. We're both playlist girls.
Yes, I like a playlist. But I also really like listening to the album like top to bottom. I feel like they were designed to be listened to like that. So I really, like if I'm cooking or if I'm home, I will usually do full album.
I feel like last year was a great year for people who like to listen to albums from start to finish.
Yeah.
There were so many that were designed to be listened that way. And sometimes they're not.
Yeah, totally.
And that's always a bummer. But yeah, last year was a gold mine for that. And for women in music, which is very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
What is your most used kitchen tool or implement?
I think my microplane. I definitely had a big donabe phase when I lived in LA. I think it was a rite of passage. I would cook anything in there, but in general, like now it's, a lot of the recipes you don't even need a pen for. And so microplane. I also love a mandolin, especially in the winter because I'm like, oh my God, so many more root vegetables. But you mandolin them into like a little carpaccio and it just makes everything great.
Maybe this is the year I finally get a mandolin.
Yes.
I've just always been a little scared.
Well, I mean, I have sliced so many fingers on the mandolin, but you can get the little gloves and it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, my chopping skills, I don't do chive chopping competitions. I'm like a home cook and that's fine.
The chive chopping competitions, that's funny. That's if you know, you know. Yeah, Nigella Lawson was on the show and she was talking about how she has this like Game of Thrones glove that she basically wears when she's using her mandolin. So
they work great. They're like the best $9 that you'll spend on Amazon because they could be under an armor.
Any dream travel destinations?
I dream of going far because I dream of actually taking a week off where I'm not looking at Slack. And so I've like been really wanting to go to Vietnam on like a motorcycle trip with my boyfriend, but I think that will need to wait a little bit. Honestly, I want to go back to the Greek islands so badly, so I think it's probably our next trip.
Okay, we'll do the last question. If you had to be trapped on a desert island with one food celebrity, who would it be and why?
Oh my God, this is going to be such a boring answer, but like it has to be Martha Stewart. She's just so fun, you know? Obviously there's the food, but it's also the vibe. I'm trying to think, all the men like scare me. So like I wouldn't do that.
Who would do what on the island if you were trapped with Martha?
She would definitely just boss me around, you know, and I would do whatever she says, but then she would make jokes and it would make it okay. For sure.
I love Martha. Everybody loves Martha. All right. One thing I forgot to ask you, then I'm going to go back to this. I read your acknowledgments. I always find everyone's acknowledgments very interesting and revealing. Leslie from Disco Cubes is in there. So happy to see her name. But you have this special little thing you wrote to my fellow founder friends, especially Camilla, Jing, and Becca. Watching you write your own cookbooks gave me permission to believe in mine. You're my real-life superheroes. Camilla Marcus, obviously, from Westbourne. Jing from Fly by Jing, and Becca from Fishwife.
Yeah.
I loved that you shouted them out because you really are this sort of interesting quartet of CPG. What have you learned from each other?
Okay, so there was a moment in time when we were all launching our companies in LA. We were all living in LA. We would co-work together a lot. And we have the same book agent, this woman, Michelle Krim, who is just so lovely and really believed in us. And so they wrote their books and then they really pushed me to submit my proposal and actually like jump into this project. But especially Becca, because I think our companies are like maybe most similar. Becca and I text each other every 48 hours about the work stuff and we share everything. And I think that the support system of other female founders is so important. Other female founders that maybe are in the same retailers or, you know, kind of have the same pinpoints. They're very unique pinpoints that we go through every day. And they have just been great. And they really pushed me to meet Michelle, to do the thing. So I wanted to give them a little acknowledgement.
That's so great. I really admire what all of you have built.
Thank you.
I mean, it's incredible. I would add, you know, Sana Javeri Kadri to that. And you mentioned Ashwarya earlier, who has Brightland. I love her products.
I love her olive oil, and she's gifting olive oil to everyone at the cocktail party, which I'm very excited about.
How
because
nice.
These recipes require a lot of good olive oil. So
yeah, I go through olive oil like water, too.
I know.
I especially love hers. She was my intern at Lancôme.
No way.
Years ago. Isn't that funny? Before either of us had any idea we would do anything in the food world. But I just really admire what all of you have done. You not only have beautiful products, but they're so beautifully design-driven and just thoughtful in every way.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, Mélanie, always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me again.
That's it for today's show. Thank you to Mélanie Masarin for joining me. Check out Cherry Bomb's Substack for a recipe from Melanie's new book, Riviera. If you missed our first episode in the New Home miniseries featuring food media icon Donna Hay, be sure to check it out. Thank you again to Fisher and Paykel for their support. Our theme song is by the band Cha La La. Special thanks to City Vox Studio in Manhattan. Our producers are Catherine Baker and Jenna Sadu. Our executive assistant is Bridget Pittman. And our head of partnerships is Rachel Close. Thanks for listening, everybody. You're the bomb.